Welcome to Transcendent. I'm Raya, and I'm the daughter.
And I'm Joe, and I'm the dad.
And we have a special guest here today, my niece.
My granddaughter. This is Maya. She is going to be telling us a little bit about what's it like for the LGBT community in a high school, in a small town.
Now, Maya is visiting right now. During the summer, it's great to have you here from across the country. So we don't get to see you in person that often. It's great to have you here. And you've been spending the whole week with Grandpa and Grandma. It's good to have you here. Maya, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Maya. I'm going into my senior year of high school. I am very involved with theater and music and dance.
And you just told me the other day that you're involved in a camp as well.
Yes, I am a gymnastics coach.
Which you've been doing gymnastics your whole life.
Yes, I started competing in gymnastics when I was probably in elementary school.
You have quite a bit of connection to the LGBTQ community.
Yes, I would say so.
You have an aunt who is transgender. That happens to be Raya. You have a cousin who is also transgender. And you yourself are bisexual.
The last time you and I spoke about it, you were not going to choose a label. You were just
That is correct.
living how you are.
It's so much more work to put a label on something when it doesn't really affect me at all, what word I use. I like who I like and I date who I like, and that's where I stand.
And it takes a lot of the pressure off then, too, that you don't have to decide, here's my entire life and here's who I am and everything.
Right.
You just get to live and
Exactly.
be who you are.
Exactly.
Do you feel pressure, or have you felt pressure from the outside from either kids in your class or anyone around to be a certain way or to not be a certain way?
Completely. I think that once I kind of realized that maybe I wasn't straight and was attracted to other people, I have very accepting parents and grandparents and aunts and everything, and I knew that it was like completely safe and comfortable for me to say how I felt and who I felt things for. But in the rest of the community, it's kind of more close-minded.
You don't feel like you want to be as open as you are with us. Is that what you're saying?
Well, not quite. I think once I wasn't in any rush to be like, oh, I think I have feelings. I think I'm attracted to both or multiple, whatever. I'm going to come out. It was more of when I actually liked someone and found that attraction that I was like, okay, well, I guess I am because this is a thing happening. And so at that point, it was clear to everybody around me, like, oh, Maya's dating a girl. I guess she likes girls. And so, which is true, but people kind of put that label on for me rather than, I'm not sure what the alternative would be.
Did you feel like some people, like once you started dating a girl, that people assumed that you liked exclusively girls? Did you find
100%. People either assumed that I liked exclusively girls, or I had friends from elementary school and middle school who I hadn't talked to in years come up and ask me if I ever had a crush on them when we were younger and if that's why I was friends with them. And I'm not offended by questions or curiosity or anything, and I make that very clear. I know that lots of people at my school who are in a similar situation to me get very defensive and closed off because it is sometimes hurtful what people can say, and not that they're trying to be hurtful. It's just one of those things where it's not everyone knows what is polite to say.
Have you noticed any repercussions from that you find people that are going to be bullying?
Well, I think a lot of that is just high school. And I started high school, which is around the time that I came out. It was during COVID that I kind of had that time to reflect. So going back into school, there was a lot of people that I didn't see anymore and didn't interact with.
But did they feel offended by what you were doing?
Well, that's a good question because typically, like I said, I'm very involved in theater and music and arts. And most of the time, those groups are very open minded and accepting. And that's kind of who I've always surrounded myself with and where I've always felt at home. So when I did come out, the people who I was surrounded with were all people who were already accepting. It was only the people who I wasn't very close to and didn't really care about their opinion that had a problem.
When those people came and asked you those questions about, were you only friends with me because of that, or did you have a crush on me? How did you respond at that time? Those must have been difficult conversations, I imagine.
Well, in that particular situation, I was in a history class that I had last year, and there was a group of boys in that class who they're the popular kids and they kind of control the school with, how it is. And I sat in the corner in the other side of the classroom and they never talked to me and I never talked to them. But every once in a while, one of them would call me over and be like, hey, Maya, you're gay, right? Come over. And I was always like, if these people who don't typically have any interest and shut the door to people who say they're gay are asking questions, I think that's something. And I'm not going to turn away to that. So I would always go over, and lots of the questions were usually like inappropriate stuff about like, well, I don't know if I can say that, but like, how do two girls have sex and how does this work and what does this mean? And a lot of it, I knew they were just trying to be funny with each other and just make each other laugh. But they're also asking questions that they clearly don't know the answer to. So instead of seeing it as like they're making fun of me, I took it as an opportunity to inform them and told them what I could.
So you didn't feel like they were trying to be respectful. You felt like they were trying to be disrespectful, or kind of somewhere in between, or?
Yes, I know I'm probably grouping all of these boys together, and I'm sure not all of them felt that way or thought that way, but that was definitely the tone that had come across, and lots of those people in that group have said offensive things that I've heard or to my friends, or they post something on social media, or I knew where they stood on the whole idea, and they didn't want me to like enlighten them.
I think sometimes there's a perception, at least among my peer group, probably in my age group, of people that went to school in the 80s and the early 90s, that things have changed so much, and everyone now is just accepting and open. And oftentimes there will be people in my age group that will say, well, you look at these kids now and there's 52 different genders and there's this and that and everyone's open and everyone's everything. But the picture that you're painting is that that's not really the case at all, that there's still a lot of closed-minded people. And
right. I think that's partially because it's become something that slowly has become more and more accepted. Doesn't mean that it's accepted everywhere, but it does make a difference for teachers to how they react when they hear students having a conversation like that, or when somebody asks them a question, they don't have that support to be able to say kind of their views on it. And not that they can't like express how they feel, but there are, in a school, there's things that you can and can't talk about as teachers, and they're pretty strict on that now, especially because there's lots of different opinions out there. But I think that definitely has a big part. It's not accepted, but it's accepted that they have to deal with it, you know? And I use quotes for that because
What do you think is
if that
the
makes sense.
collective attitude of the staff? Do you think they're all accepting? Do you think that they're split, just like the general population?
Yeah, I would say it's split probably 3 ways. I would say there's a third of the staff who is completely against it, doesn't want to hear about it, doesn't agree with it, blah, blah, blah. And then there's another section of the staff that feels maybe indifferent, but they have accepted the fact that we both can have different opinions and I can't stop you from believing what you believe, and I respect that you have a different outlook on things, and I'm not going to step into your box and you're not going to step into mine, kind of thing.
What they call that sometimes is people
Respect.
who are accepting but not affirming.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's pretty common.
Right. And then the last section of the staff, I would say, is supportive. And I think that a big thing of that is because even within the group of people that's supportive, there's still a line of education and people who have more experience with the LGBTQ community and people who don't, because I oftentimes hear students and teachers who are in complete support of the LGBTQ community saying things that aren't probably very nice, or they're not very true or accurate. And
in the class, would you say, or is this sort of when they
Yeah.
assume people aren't listening, or
oh no,
what context? No, right?
in the class, for example, if somebody is getting picked on for being gay and another classmate will stand up and be like, hey, don't say that, this is why, and they'll say something that's almost offensive, but you know that it's not that they're not supportive, it's that they just aren't very knowledgeable on the topic.
So, what you're saying is they will stand up in defense, but the way that they're defending, or to say, we need to treat people with respect, but the way that they convey that message is done in a way that you think that could have been done better? Or do you have an example of what someone might say?
Well, I've had conversations with people and they ask about my sexuality, and like I have said before, I don't like to put a label on myself. I don't see its importance, and I just don't do it. So a lot of the times I'll have classmates, friends ask me about it. I'd say yes, they're almost trying to put me in a box, but without the intention of separating everybody. It's more of a like, oh, no, like I completely accept it. Like, you can tell me, kind of thing, where they're like, I'm open about it. You can be honest. Like, I fully support, rather than I actually believe what I'm telling you, and that's actually how I feel.
What about the community at large?
At large, I would say it's quite turned away and less accepting. But again, those aren't the people I surround myself with. So I don't see much of it because I don't choose to.
What about other friends in the LGBTQ community?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have stories of ways that people are treated now, both positive or negative?
Most of my friends are part of that community. again, those are the people I surround myself with. And living in a place where I live, we all have our sort of hiccups and run-ins, and it's usually not super physical or anything, but I have been in a class where the class was about professional communications. That was the class. And it was not in the, like, had nothing to do with what we were learning about. The teacher somehow started talking about politics and sexuality and asking the students about what they thought about it. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea. Lots of people I know think those conversations are better not to be had in the school setting. But I personally believe that if you come at it from the right perspective, it can be a very productive and helpful conversation.
So have you found that because you're public about who you are,
Right.
have you found that they will, that either staff or people will approach you for clarification of what they think and trying to learn more about this, that you're a source, that you're an authority?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the case? Does that ever happen?
You know, I have had teachers where they didn't come to me directly, but they made statements to the whole class. And the point of the conversation was to prove that you can accept people without agreeing with them. And I think that was a good thing to be teaching. But the example that this teacher chose to give to all of these classes of freshman students was, for example, I don't like gay people. I don't think it's okay to be gay. I don't agree with it at all. But I know people who are gay. I have friends with people who are gay, and that's fine. And the effort in the idea was there, but I don't think that information should have been shared to that many students or any students at all, because again, this is our teacher, and that can be a very hurtful thing.
You know, one thing I really appreciate about you, Maya, is as you tell these stories, you're giving all of these people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people in the LGBTQ community would say, this teacher was just really wrong in the way that they went about this. But as you're sharing the story, you're seeing the best. You're believing the best about them. You're assuming that they're trying to do the right thing, even if they said it in the wrong way. Has that attitude, do you think, helped you to get through? Has that made your time going through some of these things easier?
Oh, for sure, 100%. I have made friends with people who I know going into the friendship don't agree with what I think and what I believe, and not just about sexuality, but about lots of things. And I'll tell my other friends, like, yeah, this is my new friend, but they don't really agree about such and such. And a lot of the times my friends respond to that with, then why are you friends with them if they believe in something that's so against who you are? And I don't think of that as something to turn away from. It's an opportunity to teach somebody. It's an opportunity for you yourself to learn. It should be appreciated as, like, humans. We love to learn. We love to whatever. And I love to talk. I could talk all day. And I don't have...
Really?
Yes. I'm completely open to all kinds of conversations with all different people. And this past year, I recently became friends with somebody who very early on made a comment about how they don't like gay people. That's what they said. And I kind of pushed a little farther about asking questions. What do you mean by that? Why is it that you feel that way? I made sure to sit back and let him take his time and say what he wanted to say, and make sure that he knew it wasn't me coming at it as like, well, like, why do you think that? what are you trying to say? It was very much as if, I'm not asking you so that I can tell you you're wrong when you're done. I'm asking you because I'm actually curious as to how your mind works and how other people's minds work. Over conversation after conversation through time, as we've become closer and closer friends, it is a conversation that comes up quite frequently. And over time, I've come to realize that originally when I met him, he said, yeah, I'm homophobic. Completely labeled himself as homophobic. And I said, well, why would you say you're homophobic rather than, I don't know. He told me that he had bad experiences with some gay people in the past. So I made sure to point out to him that just as in everything else, you can't group everyone together. And I said, for example, right now, you just told me that you're homophobic, but I'm not going to just group you in with all the other people who tell me they're homophobic, because I don't think that means you are the same or that you think the same things. And I don't think that you should do that either. And he was like, well, yeah, because I'm, and I was like, well, just because I've had a bad interaction with a straight person doesn't mean I'm going to say, I don't like straight people. I don't like straight people. Because what does that mean for everybody else? And he was like, well, I guess you're right. Yeah, I guess you're right. A big part that bothered him was the people who couldn't use that same, I accept that we have different opinions and I respect that you believe something different. It was the people in the community who want to push their beliefs onto other people. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's something that I never want to do, because I completely think everybody should have the right to think whatever they want to think. That doesn't mean I want to teach them about what I think and I want to learn about what they think. And it doesn't mean that I'm trying to convince them something otherwise.
We have listeners right now that think exactly like you do. We have other listeners out there right now that think you're not going far enough. You can't just be accepting of all of this. And everybody is on their own level. We always say if you've met one gay person, you've met one gay person. If you've met one trans person, you've met one trans person. Everyone is different and everybody has different ideas. But some people think, well, I can't accept what you're saying here, and they want to argue the point.
Right.
What would you say to people like that?
Usually, I just start asking questions. At what point does it become an issue that affects you? At what point do you cross paths with somebody and it personally affects you in a way that matters?
I notice really all of these conversations, you are approaching them in good faith and assuming that they're approaching you in good faith. And so even if they aren't, the fact that you are approaching them really from a perspective of let's get along tends to bring people around, it seems like. Even if they don't end up ultimately agreeing with you and your viewpoint, it seems like in general they come around and they say, well, at least I think that you as a person are a good person. Do you think that that's
100%?
Yeah.
I mean, we've grown so much since the beginning, and people have evolved and they've learned things and they've built things and they've invented things. Everybody wants to advance.
Have you had a time where you've had a friend that you had to stand up for that was being bullied?
For sure. I don't have a problem with confrontation. It's one of my favorite things, actually. I am an open book. I will share anything with you. I will have any conversation you want to have if you're willing to have that conversation. And I don't wait. I say it. If there's an issue, I say, hey, there's an issue. What's going on here? And there's been lots of times throughout my life, especially my high school, living somewhere where not everyone thinks the way I do and that my friends do, where I say, hey, I don't think that needs to be said, and I completely understand that you feel that way, and that's okay, but you don't need to make it an issue because it's not an issue.
What advice would you give to people who are maybe having difficulty in high school?
It's not your issue, it's their issue, and you can't let it affect you. And I think that's one of the reasons that I've been able to have so many productive conversations with people over the years, is because I don't come at it from they are trying to attack me or hurt me or something personal. I just see it as a different opinion, and not even an issue, but like, you think something different, and that's okay. I think it's just important to remember that not everybody has to agree with you, and you don't have to agree with everyone, but it is important to be respectful and to require that same respect in return, and know that if somebody is crossing lines, it's not because of something you did. If you're being respectful of everybody else, it's not a reflection of who you are, something you did. It's completely on their experiences and what they've gone through.
Maya, I have to say, you are a breath of fresh air. Thank you for
Thank
just
you.
bringing your positivity and your attitude and your just openness to people. This is when we're living in a culture where it's so easy to get frustrated and angry with people, the attitude that you bring towards people that are different from you and that disagree with you, I really appreciate that so much.
Well, thank you.
And I think one of the things that's interesting is I'm hearing from you a lot about what your generation collectively is a little bit like.
Yeah.
My generation is considerably different. They're almost all just kind of black and white.
Right.
You're either on this side or you're on that side. But that's, people in their 70s, and they've been around a long time. Nothing like this was even discussed when we were in high school or college.
Yeah.
And now they have you going to college classes. They are, and it clearly a lot different atmosphere than it was now and then. And in most colleges, they have pride centers and a variety of things like that. And they come at it from a different perspective, just like you come at using a cell phone from a different perspective than I do.
Oh my goodness, we sure do. That's for sure.
Well, thanks, Maya. I think you
all of those things are obviously easier said than done.
Right.
I get really frustrated, and sometimes I don't always feel the way I'm saying that I do. But overall, when I look back, I think that's the outlook that I have, and I think that's taken me places, and that's worked well for me.
Well, we're looking forward to having you. Would you be interested in coming back as a guest again sometime?
No, I'm kidding. Yes, I
would. Maya, we're very grateful to have you here.
You are your grandfather's granddaughter.
And I'm so sorry that has to be the case. We're very grateful to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Next week, we're going to be speaking with my daughter, Megan, talking about her perspective on the classroom and what things are looking like as a recent college graduate in education. So tune in for that. That's going to be really, really a great conversation.
Yeah.
And thank you for the great conversation we've had here.
We hope that you benefited from tuning in today. We're so grateful to have you. We hope that this has been a great way for you to start off your week and that you can go with your relationships and bring positivity into everything that you do.
We'll see you again next Monday morning.